The morning sun drifted lazily through the kitchen windows of the Lanford house, casting long shadows over the worn linoleum floor. As Becky stood by the counter, her movements deliberate, yet slightly shaky. As she reached for a thermal container, she looked at her sister Darlene with a mixture of nervous exhaustion and a sudden flick of her old humor. Becky asked her sister if she could pour her drink into a travel cup, because she was deeply worried that if she fell asleep during her first hour at the rehabilitation center, it might send the wrong message to the counselors. Darlene watched her sister with a quiet concern that she tried to mask with her usual dry wit. Becky then admitted that she had taken her sister's shampoo from the bathroom shelf. She explained that she did not know what kind of stuff they would have there, and she did not want to take any chances just because her past choices had made her feel dull and lifeless. Did not mean her hair had to reflect that same state. Darlene reminded her that she was going to a place for healing and not on a tropical vacation, so being picky about beauty products seemed a bit out of place. Becky simply replied that she was trying to keep the mood light, acknowledging that it was finally time to face her reality because it was now or never. As they prepared to leave, Becky noticed some papers sitting on the table. She asked Darlene if those were the airplane tickets that Molly had left for her. She recalled that Darlene had mentioned selling them and wondered if that was still the plan. Darlene looked at the tickets with a sense of hesitation and admitted that she had tried to sell them multiple times, but she kept stopping herself. She confessed that she really wanted to go to Hawaii. Becky made a gentle joke about how Molly had ruined the entire trip by passing away and wondered if Molly had even considered how her departure would affect Darlene's vacation plans. Darlene immediately defended herself, saying that she was not trying to make the tragedy about her own needs. She knew that Molly understood her and knew how much a trip like that would benefit her soul. Darlene realized as she spoke that she was saying the word me quite a lot, but she insisted that Molly only wanted what was best for her loved ones. Becky tried to offer a distraction by suggesting that she could make the situation about Darlene. She told her sister that she was already packed and offered to toss her recovery workbook aside and throw in a bathing suit so they could leave for the islands right then. Darlene looked at her sister and asked what happened to the phrase now or never. Becky replied with a small smile that the phrase had officially changed to now or later. However, Darlene stood firm and told her that the trip was not going to happen today. She admitted that she wished Becky could go because she could not find anyone else to accompany her. She expressed her disbelief that Ben did not want to go on the trip. Darlene explained that Ben believed they should give the money to her father instead so that they could move into their own place together much sooner. Becky sighed and realized that life always seemed to demand a choice between a dream and a responsibility. Suddenly, the rest of the family gathered around to offer their support. They told Becky that they just wanted to say goodbye and let her know that they understood how difficult this step was and that they were truly proud of her. Jackie stepped forward and explained that since Becky was going to a Jewish rehabilitation center, she had prepared a cheat sheet of common Yiddish words for her to use. Jackie admitted that she could not tell the difference between a shlemiel and a shlemazel, so she suggested that Becky should play it safe and just use the word schmuck if she got confused. Becky was visibly moved by the gesture and told her family that she was so touched that she felt a little bit verklempt inside. The gift continued as Harris stepped forward with a handmade item. She told Becky that she had made a dreamcatcher specifically designed to catch all of Becky's alcoholic thoughts. Becky looked at the small object and remarked that it might not be big enough for all of her thoughts, but she thanked her niece and said it was very sweet. Mark then offered his contribution, which was a collection of international vending machine snacks from his company. He showed her macro-flavored potato chips that he claimed were very popular in the country of Norway. He gave her a piece of advice to only open the bag outside because of the strong smell. Dan stood there feeling a bit unprepared and admitted that he did not know they were exchanging gifts. He reached into his pocket and handed Becky $5, suggesting that she could buy some cigarettes to trade with the other residents, as if she were in a prison film. Becky laughed and said she would put everything in the car and return to say goodbye to the baby. While Becky was outside, Harris turned to her mother and admitted that even though it sounded stupid, she wished she were going somewhere herself. Darlene jokingly told her that if she drank excessively, she could also end up going somewhere. Harris clarified that she meant a real vacation. She suggested that perhaps Hawaii was too much of a dream, but they could at least spend a couple of days in South Haven. She imagined renting a small house by the lake and mentioned that she had always wanted to try jet skiing. Ben entered the conversation and reminded her that he had always wanted to live with his girlfriend in their own home. He pointed out that if they continued to save their money, that dream would happen sooner rather than later. He also mentioned that his hardware event was starting that weekend and that a famous flooring professional was going to be there. Ben joked that meeting him would allow him to check an item off his bucket list. A moment later, Becky returned and called out for her baby. Emilio was holding the child, and Becky took her daughter into her arms with tears in her eyes. She told the baby that she was going to miss her terribly, but promised that things would be so much better when she returned. She jokingly told the baby not to have any major developmental breakthroughs while she was gone. She acknowledged that the baby was already walking, but she instructed the family that if the little girl tried to run, they should say no and gently push her down to keep her from getting too far ahead. It was a bittersweet farewell, but Becky knew she had to do this for the future of her child. In a different part of the house, Dan found an unexpected guest. He shouted for the person not to take another step because he claimed to have a weapon. A woman voice replied that he did not have a gun and asked what he was doing there. It was his mother-in-law, Beverly, who was sitting in the dark. Dan asked if she was sleeping there, and she replied that she preferred to think of it as communing with nature, but admitted that she was indeed sleeping in the house. She turned off her white noise machine and looked at him. Dan was confused and asked why she was not in the state of Florida. Beverly explained that she had only agreed to move there because their friends lived there and her husband wanted to play golf all year long. She confessed that after he passed away, she realized those people were his friends, and she actually hated them. She told Dan that she was moving back because this was where her friends were. Dan remarked that her statement did not sound correct, and she pointed out that he was there, and she hoped they could be friends. Dan sighed and suggested that since the mother and son relationship had not worked out, they might as well try being friends. Beverly then asked what was happening with Dan life. She said she thought he had sold his magazine and was living in a fancy house with Darlene. Dan had to admit that things were a little different than the stories he had told her. He explained that he had gone into business with a large corporation, and they had eventually pushed him out of his own company. He confessed that the fancy house was actually just Darlene's childhood bedroom. He told Beverly that he had only told her those lies because he thought she would be living far away in Florida, so in a way it was her fault for coming back. He warned her not to tell Darlene that she was moving into his current living space. Dan explained that he did not want to rent an apartment unless Darlene could move in with him, but right now she had to help her father with the mortgage. Beverly was surprised to hear that Darlene had been helping for more than 1 year, and Dan admitted that he wanted to give her a chance to figure things out because he missed her deeply. Back at the workplace, a young man named Jeff arrived for his first day at the factory. Jackie greeted him and congratulated him on being late for his very first shift. Jeff apologized and said he could have been there earlier, but he would not have looked this well put together by the way he mentioned that he had been vaccinated. Jackie told him that was enough, simulating conversation, and began to explain the job. She told him it was not difficult and showed him the assembly line where bottles came down. She instructed him to put the bottles into boxes and then place the boxes back on the line over and over again. Jeff asked her to run the instructions by him one more time because he was suffering from a wicked hangover. He advised her never to do certain drinks the night before starting a new job. Jackie was frustrated and told him to get to work. Jeff tried to stay positive and told her to turn down the intensity because it was a beautiful day and they were all alive on the big blue ball. Jackie reminded him that their job was to fill the big blue ball with plastic bottles. Jeff explained that he had been celebrating a surfing buddy of his moving to the country of Australia. Jackie was skeptical that he had a surfing buddy in their landlocked town, but Jeff told her to check the maps. He said they had been heading toward the state of California when their van broke down in their current town, so they decided to windsurf Lake Michigan. Instead, he told her that his friend had inherited money and decided to move to a beach in the city of Sydney, and Jeff planned to join him there eventually. Jackie told him that while everyone would love to run off to a beach, some people had to make responsible choices. She warned him that if he did not get it together, he would be looking for a new job. Jeff smiled and told her that she had so much pressure she might turn into a diamond, which was a fact he had learned from comic books. Jackie realized she had her work cut out for her with this new employee. In the rehabilitation center, the group was sitting in a circle for a meeting. A woman named Rachel was sharing a harrowing story about being found unconscious on her lawn. She described how the school bus dropped off her kids, and they had to help move her because she was quite heavy. Compared the scene to ants trying to move a watermelon. Becky whispered to the person next to her that she hoped there was a camera at the door because the footage would be hilarious. The group leader reminded Becky that the center was a safe place where they respected everyone's struggle. The leader then asked Becky if she would like to share her story. Becky looked around and said that after hearing about people driving off bridges or facing other tragedies, she realized she was not as screwed up as the others. She claimed she was more of a fun drunk who had just been under a lot of stress lately. The other members of the group challenged her, and one woman said she was a fun drunk until her car ended up in an aquarium. The leader pointed out that Becky had written about an incident involving her baby on her paperwork. Becky tried to downplay it, saying that she had fallen asleep and her aunt claimed something almost happened, but nothing actually did. The leader told her that they were all one step away from disaster, and that if she did not face the truth, she was taking a spot from someone who truly wanted to get well. Becky became defensive and called everyone schmucks as she walked out. She felt that she did not belong among these people whose lives seemed far more shattered than her own. When Becky returned home, unexpectedly the house was quiet. Dan and Jackie were in the kitchen, and Dan remarked that the silence was so fresh he could hear the crunch of his snack echoing. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door, and a woman named Barb walked in. She greeted Jackie and asked how her restaurant was doing, calling it a stew cart. Jackie corrected her and explained that stew was not just food for the poor and mentioned sophisticated dishes like beef bourguignon. Jackie left the room in a huff, and Barb turned her attention to Dan. She asked why Darlene was supporting him instead of starting a life with her son. Dan told her that she had quite a nerve to start asking questions as soon as she walked in. Barb accused Dan of creating a codependent situation with his children to maintain a dysfunctional bond. She told him that he clearly could not afford the house and should sell it. Dan was furious and reminded her of her own past mistakes. He told her to get out of his house. Later at the factory, Jeff arrived before Jackie for the first time. He told her he wanted to make up for his performance the day before they began to talk, and Jeff revealed that he used to have a regular job, but got tired of waiting for life to start. He told a story about sleeping on a beach in the country of Fiji and pretending his wife had been killed by a shark so that the honeymooning couples would leave him alone. Jackie felt a connection and admitted that she really wanted to go to Hawaii, but her boyfriend was more interested in paying bills. Jeff offered to be her travel friend and said he would quit his job tomorrow to go with her. Jackie thanked him as a friend, but as his boss, she told him not to get too comfortable. She realized that maybe she needed a little more adventure in her own life too. Back at the family home, Dan was looking at a computer screen. Jackie joined him and asked if he was serious about selling the house. Dan admitted that if he sold it, he could help Darlene and Ben live together and help Becky start a fresh life after rehab. Becky suddenly walked into the room and announced that she was back because she was fixed. She showed them that she was drinking orange juice without any additives. Jackie and Dan were worried and told her she needed to go back to the center. Becky resisted, saying she would just go to meetings because she did not want to share her secrets with strangers. Dan stood up and spoke to her with great intensity. He told her that if she did not go back, she was not just ruining her life, but also the life of her daughter. He shared the pain of growing up with a father who struggled and how he used to worry every night. He asked Becky if she really wanted to put her daughter through that same pain. Becky admitted she was afraid she could not do what they asked. Dan told her she was as tough as he was and that she had to get it done. He offered to drive her back, and they left together. A short time later, Darlene and Jackie were looking at the computer together. Darlene told Jackie that she did not care what anyone said and that her father should not sell the house. Jackie told her that her father believed it was the only way for Darlene and Ben to be together. Darlene then confessed. A secret of her own, she admitted that she was not in a rush to move in with Ben, because she was not sure they wanted the same things anymore. She worried that Ben was not supporting her in the way she needed. Jackie listened and told her that even if they broke up, she would be there for her. She realized that family was the most important thing they had. At the final meeting of the day, Becky sat in her chair and apologized for her behavior earlier. She acknowledged that recovery was hard for everyone. She looked around the room and realized that these people were her community. Now she realized that having fun without drinking was possible, and that she was finally in the right place to begin her new life. The journey would be long and difficult, but she was ready to take the first step toward a brighter and healthier future for herself and her daughter. They all sat together in a circle, sharing their stories and their strength, knowing that as long as they had each other, they would never have to face their battles alone. It was a new beginning for everyone in Lanford, and the air felt a little lighter as the sun set over the town square.